Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Kemi, and I'm here to talk about Beyond the Gates Season 2, Episode 98. Now, before we begin, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and turning on your post notifications so you'll know whenever I post. All right, so we start this episode off with Andre and Chelsea. So Chelsea runs into Andre at OG's and Orphe Jeans, y'all. Sorry. She thanks him for getting the tickets for Danny so that Danny can come see the show and in Japan. And she didn't realize how much she really wanted her mom to be there. So they start to talk about finding their person. Then she starts asking her about the wedding plans or whatever. They talk about Naomi and Jacob and how it must have taken a toll on her. They talk about Derek and Andre says that he's feeling bad about it. Chelsea remembers about the whole triangle thing with him, Ashley, and Derek, and he says, even though that happened, once everything settled, him and Derek were okay with they were cool with each other, and he thanks Derek for being a hero. They then start to talk about her purses. So he's asking her about, the swatches and stuff like that, fabric and stuff for her purses. And she's shocked that, he would want to know that stuff or that he knows about that stuff. And then they talk about, photography and that and her purses and how they like, whatever. Isaiah comes in. Um, yeah, Isaiah comes in to stop by. He just stops by or whatever. Chelsea asks, oh, I thought you should be at the police station. He says he's on the way there. He just had to um, pick up some breakfast and then he has some errands to run, but then he'll be on his way to the station for the accommodation, Jacob's accommodation or whatever. So he leaves and they go back to talking about Derek and how his life was too short and how you should spend time with your loved ones. Um, you don't know what they'll what he say? Oh yeah, how you don't know what you'll do if you lose a loved one or whatever. Chelsea says she never thought her mom would get over her dad, but she's all in on Andre. Andre isn't worried about losing Danny to Bill. Um, she's finally starting to heal from that, and she won't go back. He's more worried about how random life is. And then he talks about Vernon and Anita, and then Chelsea says, "Oh, you're worried about Danny getting the big C like Anita." He talks about his parents and how he would push people away. He says they say grief is love with no place to go, so he decided not to love. That way, he wouldn't have to grieve. Chelsea says that's a terrible way to live. And then she apologizes because she was just like, dang, I'm sorry I said that. And he was just like, no, you were right. He said he designed his life to not love. And she says, and that made it easier for you to be a player. And he was just like, yeah. And it helped him from not falling in love and possibly losing someone and possibly losing the person you love. She says now that he's caught feelings, and he fell in love with someone who has a potential ticking time bomb inside. He says the deeper he falls in love with Danny, the more terrified he is of losing her. And he has all of this in his head, like he's thinking about all of this or whatever. He can only imagine how Danny is feeling. Andre then apologizes for bringing up the BRCA test and all of that, the BRCA talk or whatever. And this isn't how he wanted to start his morning. She says it's okay. She's glad that he feels comfortable enough to talk to her about stuff like that. And she talks about the evolution of his and Danny's marriage. He says he never thought that he'd be excited to grow old with someone, but he's looking forward to it. Chelsea then tells him that Danny is probably feeling the same way, and Danny always says whatever's on her mind. She will never keep anything bottled up, which we always see. Andre says he just hopes. This is when Andre says he just hopes that she isn't hiding her feelings about the variant or whatever. That's when Chelsea says that Danny isn't one to hide what's in her heart or her mind, and she's also happy that she didn't pass it on to the girls. So we see Naomi and Jacob, they're in bed, and she wakes him up with some chocolates and a strawberry. They start making out. Then they make love. They discuss how they missed each other. And then they start kissing again, and then Jacob hears pow pow and he jerks away. She wants to know what happened. He plays it off, and they go back to making love. And again, I don't understand why they keep talking about how they missed each other when y'all was seeing each other every other day at the hotel. But I digress. So Jacob wants to stay laid up in the bed, but Naomi says they got to go to the station for the accommodation. He doesn't want to go. He doesn't think that he's the hero. Naomi gives him a pep talk. He isn't trying to hear it. He's done. He isn't done until the impaler is caught. Naomi tells him all the people that they talks about all the people that he put away, and he says it's not enough. It won't be enough until he catches a man at the top. Naomi tries to get him to see that he has other responsibilities and people that care for him. She's scared that he wants to go back, and says it was a lot on her and everything else that she's going through. He wants to know what she's going through. She plays it off. Um, she makes something up or whatever. Jacob says he's been so focused on his grief that he hasn't thought about her. Um, let's see. She says no, he says he hasn't thought about her. He wants to, like, he basically tells her, if you want to tell me anything, just tell me, I'm here. She says we'll talk about it later. They have to get to the station. She says, we can shorten the time if we take a shower together. So he was just like, bet. So she was just like, I'll meet you in there. So he goes to take a shower, and then we see her looking like all scared or whatever, because again, she still has not told him about her having the variant, but whatever. So we see Randy. He's at the casino with Joey, and he's telling him about the meetup and how it's gonna go. Joey wants to know if they said anything when Randy had met with the Impalers people, and he was just like, no, he didn't tell him anything. He didn't tell them anything, and he was just like, good, that's how I like it. Just make sure you get everything. I don't want to go in blind or whatever. Randy tells Joey that he's been different lately. He's a bit more cautious, and he's chalked it up to Vanessa. Joey says, before Vanessa came in, he was reckless, and um, now with Vanessa, things have changed or whatever. So he then changes the subject. He changes the subject back to the meeting, and says he has to go. This has to go his way and only his way. Randy and Joey discuss. They're still discussing the meeting or whatever, and then Vanessa comes in. Vanessa comes in. Randy leaves. She has a little attitude at first. He wants to know what's up. She wants to know what they're going to do about Jacob, and him thinking that Joey has anything to do with the impaler. Vanessa knows he has nothing to do with it, with the ring. And since he has more experience with the cops, she just wants to know what they're going to do or whatever. So he says he'll just hopefully they'll find a new crime to solve or whatever. Um, she says as long as they're not focused on him, she's good. He then turns the conversation to her and Doug, and she talks about when they first started out and how they went from that to what they are now, and she just doesn't want that to happen with her and Joey. He says, y'all were young when y'all first met, and y'all have grown since. We're older now. We know what we want, and we know how to ask for what we want, so we'll be good or whatever. He says, so she's just like, okay, cool. So Isaiah comes in. So Vanessa leaves. Isaiah comes in. He wants to know if Joey had anything to do with the impaler. He says no, he would never do anything to hurt anybody in his family. That's how much Isaiah means to him. Isaiah is happy about that. We see Vanessa, she's at the house, and she has a flashback to the last conversation that she had with Doug when she went on that trip with Joey, when Doug wanted to go on a trip with her, but she didn't want to. She instead went with Joey, and then that was the last time she talked to him, when Joey came into the room and made a noise. but whatever. So earlier in the episode, Vanessa was at the club. She was looking at family photos. Nicole comes in. They talk about Derek's passing, and that's why she's reminiscing on all this other stuff and going down memory lane. She says it's partially because of that, and it's partially because of the twins, and they haven't accepted her and Joey because they know she isn't over Doug. Nicole gives her advice. Vanessa changes the subject to Nicole and her fantasies. They discuss their love lives and how it's going. Vanessa talks about how she's in a monogamous relationship and Nicole is sleeping with three men. Nicole says, nah, it's not three, it's only two, fantasizing about one, whatever. Nicole says she's beating herself up thinking about Ted when they finally got, especially now that they finally got into a good place. She tells her that about Ted wanting her to be chief of staff and then what Kyle said about it. Vanessa tells her that she needs to talk to Ted and tell him about the fantasies. Nicole gives pushbacks and tells her that she gives terrible advice, but then she changes her mind and says, "You right, I'm gonna go talk to him or whatever." So Vanessa leaves to go be with Joey. And again, it's not lost on me that Vanessa keeps throwing in um she keeps throwing in Nicole's face how she is sleeping with multiple men while she's only got one. When the roles were reversed, Nicole never did that to her. But whatever. That is not your friend, Nicole. I need you to remember that. So we see Ted. He is at the hospital. He's trying to get Shanice's attention. But she's having a rough time. She's busy. He mentions Nicole, and she mentions Nicole talking to her, and he says, "I knew she would help." Shanice gets mad because she's just like, "Why would you get your ex-wife to talk to me or whatever?" So he says, "Well, I thought, Nicole was equipped for this. That's why I thought it was." And he was just like, "So you couldn't talk to me? You thought that I need professional help?" He explains it to her. She says, "This is a pattern. You're always getting somebody else to talk to me when you should be the one to talk to me. You first got my aunt, then you got Nicole. When are you going to start talking to me or whatever?" So they go sit down and then they talk about themselves and they talk about Derek and what he meant to her. Then they talk about how he felt when he lost his brother and his sister-in-law. He gives her advice about grief. She thanks him for being there for her, and then she has to go back to work. So we see Nicole. She checks in with Shanice or whatever, and Shanice gives her attitude initially. She then apologized for it. Nicole tells her that she would have done it on her own. Nicole gives her advice on Ted. Shanice says she doesn't want to copy their mistakes, and Nicole tells her to learn from them. And she gives her more advice. So Shanice thanks her. Then she has to go back to work. Nicole goes to see Ted, and he wants to know if she's changed her mind about the chief of staff position, and she's just like, "Nah, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about." She has a flashback of the fantasy or whatever. She gets ready to tell him about it, but then Shanice comes in, so Nicole changes her mind and she leaves. Shanice tells Ted that she overreacted, and she knows Nicole isn't like Leslie. Ted tells her that she's the only woman in his life, so they're hugging, and Nicole is walking by and she sees them. So that was pretty much the episode. Not a lot happened in that episode. Just, again, a little bit the ending of the whole, not even the ending of the whole Derek thing, because they're still going to be talking about this loss or whatever. But we're just, getting ready to go to our next story. That's really what's about to happen. But yeah, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and turning on your post notifications so you'll know whenever I post. Get down in the comments. Tell me what you guys thought of this episode, and I will see you guys in the next one.